Hello, everyone. Welcome to Faith and Fellowship. We're three guys based in Utah. I'm Kirk.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Lyric.
And the goal of our show is to share stories and beliefs from different people local to our area.
Our mission is to bring civil discourse and allow people who hold different faiths a platform to tell us what they believe.
The show's model consists of an interview episode and a follow-up response episode where we'll discuss the topics that were brought up with our guests in the initial interview and give our take from a biblical standpoint.
Full disclaimer, not all comments and opinions expressed by our guests represent our own opinions. Thank you guys for listening and enjoy this episode.
All right, welcome back to Faith and Fellowship, a podcast that is put out by Art City Church in Springville, Utah. I am Pastor Kirk Schull.
I am Lyric.
Lyric Cannon.
Man of many titles that will be discussed today.
And thank you. Do you have a last name?
I do. Canaan, like the Canaanites.
Oh, great. All
Good
right,
people.
we got some Canaanites in the studio.
Yep.
We're going to be getting into the podcast in just a little bit and the content. And it's not exactly what we wanted it to be. We want this podcast to be a mixture of stories from people who are here and part of Art City Church, and we want to hear their stories like we did the last two podcasts, which I think went really well, and that was the story of Yang Ving, who their family have actually moved away, but we got to hear his story. And then the other half of it is we want other faiths. We want people and leaders of other faiths here in Utah to come in and we want to be able to have a cordial kind of educational conversation about the differences when it comes to religion, maybe Christianity, maybe some people who believe in the Bible and believe in God, but it may be different than what we would believe here. We want to give them a platform, and then we want to be able to discuss those things. So we wanted to, this next couple episodes, we wanted to have in a Greek Orthodox bishop.
Yeah, Greek or priest. Bishop's the higher on the pyramid there.
Correct.
So Greek Orthodox priest. We're hoping to have in a Catholic priest, so you'll kind of get to see both sides of that coin. Got a couple other guests we're trying to get lined up. We've been gone for a little bit. We're going to call this segment Intro Banter.
Yeah.
We got some updates to share with you. Where have we been? Kind of had a delay, but we're back on track. We're going to be pumping out some awesome episodes, really educational episodes that we think you guys will enjoy.
Yeah, and I think that's important to know. So we recorded our first two episodes, and right after that, we had a tragedy in my family. So my wife's mom and dad were in and also her nephew were in a head-on collision. And so we had to fly back to their home state of Tennessee, and we were there for, maybe a month. My wife is still there with my oldest daughter, but we were there all as a family, including Joel. Lyric was still here. So it was just, it was hard to stay on track and to record, and that's why we delayed the dropping of the first two episodes because of that, because we want to make sure that we stay consistent. We want to make sure that we don't have the delays or the absences. So we're back. I'm back, and my father-in-law, tragically, he passed away, but my mother-in-law is doing better, and she's actually supposed to be going home at the day. This is, we're recording on a Thursday. I think it's August something.
14th or 15th.
14th or 15th. So at the day of recording, my mother-in-law is going to be going home tomorrow. And Joel's going to have a leave of absence. He's going to be helping with his family because this affected their family, and their family's in ministry, actually a new part of new ministry, and in their life, and he's going to be helping them. And then he's going to be back with us, I do believe, in next year. But he's still going to be active. We've been talking about having him on,
via Zoom or something like that.
Via Zoom, and he's going to be still part of what's going on. So anyway, it's going to be probably Lyric and myself for the most part.
Here.
But
Joel
we're going
to be the unsung hero behind it all, editing, giving us that amazing intro we have. Yep. So we're sad he's not with us, but he's still a major part of this. So.
Yep. So that's an update. I think that was enough that's what's been going on and why we haven't been recording, but we still want to, again, we want this to be something that there are podcasts out there. Podcasts have been going on for a long time now, and Christian podcasts have been going on. We want this to be something that I hope that it's a blessing and a help to you and to, the listeners who may be out of state or not maybe local here. But we also want it to be a help to our church and our community here as we try to have a conversation about, it's all about glorifying God. It's all about truth and why we believe what we believe. And we want to have those discussions when it comes to different religions and even different parts of Christianity.
Right. So today, what we got going on, we'll kind of get into the main show here, the meat and potatoes. Today, what we got going on is we are interviewing Kirk. He is our special guest today.
Hi. So, and the reason that is why? Because of everything that was going on.
Because we're failures, and I'm just kidding.
Well, we are. But at the same time, everything that we just talked about going on, we wanted to try to get one of the guests on, which was the Greek Orthodox priest.
Right.
And the time frame didn't line up, and we wanted to drop we need to get an episode recording. There is a demand when it comes to us doing this. So we thought about what we could do, and Lyric had an idea of interviewing me and let me tell my story. So
yeah, I think it's an interesting story to tell. But yeah, we will be having some guests on, not as special as Kirk, that's for sure. But we will be having some guests coming in future episodes, which I think will be super interesting and intriguing to you guys listening. So yeah, why don't we get into it?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Wrote up some stuff. I know Kirk's backstory for the most part, but I find it interesting. I think we should share it. First question, Kirk, where does your small, minute accent come from? I don't know. I think that's a good intro to get into kind of the biography here.
Well, first of all, I don't think I have an accent. I think you do.
Oh.
So I think that's the question, right? Is like everybody has an accent.
No, I speak normal English.
Oh, I thought I spoke normal English. No. Okay. So there may
all
be
of our
some
viewers in the South.
There may be some subjectivity there.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in absolute truth. I
think. All right, to answer your question, so I am originally from a town called Roxborough, North Carolina, and it is in. I think some people would say it's not in the deep South, but it is in the South. It's actually northern North Carolina in what would be called the Piedmont area or the Triangle area, which would include Durham, Raleigh, and Chapel Hill. And that's kind of where the Triangle part comes in. Roxborough's not necessarily part of that, but we're like 30 minutes from Durham. So we would include ourselves kind of more in that area. So that's kind of where the accent's going to come from. I grew up there, was born there, and was there until age like 19 when I left. So yeah, that's where I picked up my accent.
Gotcha. And then we'll get into later. It warped a little bit because of your job at the current time. But so tell me a little bit. You were raised in a Christian church. Tell me a little bit about that church, what it was like growing up in typical Southern Bible Belt area church.
Yeah. So when you're growing up as a kid, I don't think, and this is something I actually think deeply on where we are and how we minister. When you're growing up as a kid, you don't necessarily think about deep theological truths, or a lot of times even your faith is, and I hate to say that your faith is not your own, because that's not necessarily accurate, but you are being molded and all of us are going to be molded into what our surroundings and influences are, right? So my family grew up in what we called like an independent fundamental Baptist church. But for me growing up as a boy, it was the church that I think we started attending the church. It was called Five Forks Baptist Church.
Five forks like utensils?
Yeah, Five Forks. And it's a unique name. I know it because the reason it's Five Forks is the church was started in a very rural community, and it's very country. And the church was built on the corner of where 5 roads intersected. So you had 4, like a crossroad, but there was another road that came off of it. So they just named the church Five Forks Baptist Church. Very rural area, and it kind of related to the community. And by the time we started going to the church, they had moved, and that's kind of the problem with names, right? That name did not apply anymore because now you're on the side of a kind of a major highway, Highway 86, and the Five Forks, just you keep it. So there's a story to be said, and I know we don't get off subject with that. There's a story to be said about tradition that plays into this, and names, and how things can change if they need to. But anyway, for me growing up as a boy, we had a children's ministry. So I would go on Wednesday nights to what was called an Olympic Club type of children's ministry, where we would memorize scripture and get food and candy and play kickball. And so you're not thinking necessarily about what does this church believe? It's my mom comes to this church, and my brother went for a little while with us until he was old enough not to go. And you have friends, and it starts becoming social. That's how my childhood was until I got to the age of, 14 or 15, and got to the point where it's like, I just really didn't want to be part of it anymore. So that's kind of the background up into my teenage years. And then I left. I didn't really go to church anymore because it didn't really mean anything to me. I was finding my social networking, or my friends and social life from high school, and not necessarily from church.
How did that kind of go over with your parents at the time? Were both parents attending the church? Was it kind of a mutual understanding? We understand Kirk's at that age where we're not going to force him to go anymore. How did that kind of play out with your parents when you're like, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm not really interested in going at this time?
Interesting question. So it was a complex, mixed feeling that could also confuse the child, because my mom was a devoted, and is still a devoted Christian, goes to church every time the doors are open, very active in this church. And my dad was not. And at this point in time, presently, he goes to church from time to time, but he's not a very devoted person that goes to church all the time. And he would probably say, if you asked him, that's a complicated subject, but just is he a believer or not? That's a complicated subject. But when it comes to attendance and being involved, my dad was not involved at all, and his job took him away from home a lot, because he was a captain of a tugboat that pulled oil rigs and coal barges. So he would be gone for a long time, then he would come home, but he didn't have that activity in the church, and my mom did. So when it became time for me, when I'm getting older, I'm 14, 15, I'm not a believer at this time. Okay.
So you're going to church. Did you get baptized at a certain age? Was that a thing? Did you get baptized?
Yeah. Everybody gets baptized at the age of 8. No, I'm just kidding. That's a different religion. But no, it's believer's baptism, but it's almost very similar. I mean, at the age of, I don't even know what the age was. I don't have a date to be able to go back to, but sometime during some service, I went forward and made a profession, and I was baptized. But I do not believe at this present time that my faith was true or real. And we could talk about that maybe in a little more when I can give you my
we'll get to that.
conversion experience. But so I was baptized, I was going to church, but there came a point in time where I was in high school and I didn't really care, about Christ. I didn't care about God. I didn't care about religion. What I cared about was friends, having a good time. And honestly, to be honest with you, I was ashamed of a lot of things that was going on with the church. And so I eventually got to the point where I alienated myself and tried to do whatever I could to not be part of it. And eventually that's what the reality was. But to the original question, it was a mixed bag. My dad he wasn't concerned. My mom, on the other hand, was really concerned. And I had some really good mentors at that church who I believe they absolutely loved Jesus and loved truth and loved me. And they would reach out to me.
I was just about to ask, my next question was there anyone pouring into you? How was the outreach, for trying to bring the lost sheep back to the fold? If there was people that were in the church reaching out to you, pouring into you, trying to get you to come back, how that kind of worked?
Yeah, there were. I think the whole goal of a church is you're trying to have the whole church be like that, right? But so the whole church, just like any other church, had work that needed to be done. But there were men specifically that reached out to me, told me they loved me, told me they missed me, wished I could come back, would take me out to eat. They would say, hey, you want to go out to eat breakfast? And it was awkward. I know it was awkward for them. And I was cordial. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like, I'm just not interested in going back or going to church. And it's just not a priority. So I would say things like, yeah, I'll try to be there on this day or try to be there on a day. And we deal with that stuff here. You got people that show up or go to church, and I'm sure in all different religions. But there's a difference between trying to come and trying to explore, or you're coming for some other odd reason and actually being a devoted follower of truth and a devoted follower of Jesus, right? So there were people that reached out. And I honestly believe, even though there was no initial success in trying to bring me back to church or to follow Christ in his ways, I believe the prayers of those people, including my mom, is what God answered in bringing me to faith in him.
So there's a phrase we kind of use here when talking about different groups. We have the phrase, are you culturally religious, this religion? Are you doctrinally this religion, right? Are you going to church because you truly believe this? Are you deep in the doctrine? Is this something you believe wholeheartedly? And you can still be culturally and believe in Jesus for sure. But so it seems like you were going because the cultural aspect, this is what you do Sunday morning. You go to church. This is what everyone around me is doing. So early on, was that where you would fit in more in that category? Absolutely.
I was a cultural Christian, and there was no doctrine. There was no truth. I was not following Jesus because I saw my need or because I needed him and the fact that my sins needed to be forgiven. There was no love that I had for Christ. It was more cultural. I'm going because I'd always gone. My mom raised me. And I think every young person has to come to a conclusion, has to come to a crossroads in their life. Am I riding the coattails of culture, which includes my parents? Or do I truly believe what I say I believe, or my church says I believe? And, we see that around here and in our culture when it comes to, the LDS religion. It's not just the LDS. And I hope that that's something that actually comes from my testimony, is that while we were in the biblical gospel would have been preached at this church that I was part of, but you're not a stranger to cultural religion. And any religion that you're part of, you have to have a crossroads to say, okay, do I believe this? Is this faith's a personal thing? Do I believe this, or am I believing this because I'm scared that if I say I don't, I'm going to be alienated or ostracized by family or by the religion. And I think religions should also be willing to allow people to ask hard questions and to explore their faith so that their faith can become real. You don't want to have this shallow faith. It's like a shell, but inside you're not what you say you are on the outside. I was definitely something on the inside different than I was on the outside.
And I think that's cool to kind of hear that from you, because I think oftentimes, and I've seen this in different, religions I've been a part of before coming to Christ, we tend to put our religious leaders sometimes on this pedestal of these people were almost perfect. You know what I mean? They've been these holy people, and not that you were necessarily a bad person, but there's a human aspect. You didn't always believe. That's not something that just you were raised in it, stuck to it. You knew your whole life you were going to go into ministry. There was a human aspect, right? That's a choice you had to make. You're just like all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, there was no way. Even when I came to Christ, before that time that you would have asked me if I was going to be a pastor or be in ministry, I would have laughed at you. I had zero desire to even want to be part of the Christian community. I was avoiding the Christian community because I didn't know the head of the church. I didn't know Jesus. And so there are a lot of people that aren't going to church because they don't know who Jesus is. They haven't fell in love with Christ. That's what Christianity is. The body of Christ is a natural reaction to falling in love with Jesus. Because when you fall in love with Jesus, the way the Bible explains it is you are automatically a part of his body. And so one of the fruits of that is you fall in love or you love the body of Christ. Other people who love Jesus too. And that's what the church is. The church is a bunch of people who love Jesus and come together because we all have that in common and we want to obey, what Christ wants us to do. Because we can never do what enough good works to get to heaven. We follow after Jesus not to repay what he's done for us, because we never could do that. It's a heart of gratitude to say, you have given us everything. You have paid a debt we never could have paid. And I hadn't realized that yet. I didn't know anything about that. So why would I want to go to a building and go around people if I didn't know the head of the church, Jesus?
No, I totally agree with you. That's awesome. And we're gonna get to more of your conversion, what actually brought you to Christ when you made that decision. So kind of some context to follow up to that. So you graduate high school and you immediately know you're going to be a pastor, right? So you go to the closest Bible college near your house. That's how it goes down?
Nope, not even close.
What do you end up doing as soon as you get out of high school?
So I don't want to say full transparency, but maybe a little bit more transparency, or try to be as transparent as I can. But I barely graduated high school because it wasn't that I was academically challenged and not smart. I just didn't care. I didn't care about class. I didn't care about school. I didn't care about the books. All I wanted to do was have a good time. And so my junior and senior years were basically, how can we get out of school? How can I trick the security guard in the parking lot and get in my car and skip school and not think about the ramifications of your parents or principals finding out? It's just, nope, let's live today. Let's go to the lake. Let's go to people's houses. Let's get out of this town. I mean, that's just what I was about. And I think a lot of that was I wanted to be that guy. And maybe we're all formed by our culture, right? But growing up, one of the big shows that I watched was Saved by the Bell, and I just wanted to be Zach Morris.
You're dating yourself here.
Yeah, maybe I am. Back in the 90s, growing up, that's the Zach Morris was like everybody's hero, because for some reason he could go to school, have a blast, never study, and everything turned out okay. And it's like, I want to be that guy. And so I tried to be that guy. He's very popular, you know, socially and with people. But the problem was that's not reality. That's a TV show. And when you don't go to school and you don't study and you're going to fail. So I had some people in my life who saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, went secularly. And like just people, period, like not necessarily Christians or people in the church who said, you know what, you don't deserve to graduate because you missed so many days. But you know, if you do this, and I had some friends that were doing the same thing with me. We had to actually, because we had missed so many days of school that you could not make them up. The assistant principal told me and my friends, if you will go out, they had a landscaping job right outside the school. We had to plow up ground, like
Child
rake
labor
ground.
laws.
We had to plant.
Non-existent at this time, I guess.
I don't know how he pulled it off, but I'm glad he did. And we had to plant all of these bushes. We had to sow grass. We had to do all this manual labor. And he said, if you'll do this, I've worked it out that we'll let you have your days and we'll let you walk. Basically, we don't want you to be here anymore.
You're a hindrance on us.
Basically, we don't want you to repeat 12th grade because we got to put up with you again, you know? So we did all that. And what he didn't tell us was that job was like right outside the school where the student parking was. And at this time, we only had one high school in a town of about 30 to 35,000 people.
Bigger than the town we're in now, then.
It's close, similar.
Yeah.
Well, no, the county is about the same. I would say the town then, because the county's still going to go to the same school, you know? And we only had one high school at that time, Person Senior High School. Our mascot was the Rockets. And we weren't cool enough to be the Red Devils, you know, of Springville High, but, or Merritt Academy, where my kids go, which is the Knights. You know, we're the Rockets, but it was cool. But anyway, it was right where everybody goes to student parking. So when school was let out, he made sure we were there at that time when school was let out, so all the people would come out and just laugh at us. And that was part of what he wanted. He wanted us to feel this sense of
So there's a public humiliation.
Public humiliation.
Child labor laws are being broken.
I think we're past the statute of limitations. So I don't think anybody's.
This guy's still like.
I think he's passed.
Yeah,
I think he's passed on. But anyway, I barely graduated high school. And at that point in time, what are you going to do with your life? I was literally, when I say this, I really mean it. I was as much physically lost in my life than I was spiritually lost. I didn't know what to do.
And that goes into our next segment. So you don't know what to do. So you're like, I'm going to join the Air Force. You saw Top Gun at the time. You're ready to be...
but there is another part to that before the military part. So I actually graduated high school, talked to my parents in because they believed in me, and I betrayed all that really. And you know, I'm ashamed of what took place, but this is what happened. So I went to college, community college, because I couldn't get into a regular college. Didn't have the grades, but you can get into community college, work your way up, right? And I had some friends of mine that were going to, we had a community college in Roxborough, but there was a community college in Wake County, which is in Raleigh. And a lot of people go to that community college and then transfer to North Carolina State University or the University of Chapel Hill, something like that. And so I had some friends that were going to do that. I had three male friends, and they were going there. And one of my friends was pretty wealthy, and his mom and dad had bought a single wide trailer in the Raleigh area, and they were going to go rent. He wasn't going to pay rent, but the other guys were going to pay rent and live there and go to Wake Tech. Well, I talked my parents into letting me go there, and I was going to pay rent, and we lived in this single wide. My motives were get out of Roxborough. Let's have a great time. Party Central. Here we come.
Is Roxborough where dreams go to die?
I don't know. I mean, towns are different, right? I mean,
right.
And people are different, but maybe some people would say so. But
who's the? You said there's a statue in Roxborough of someone famous. Someone.
Enos Enos Slaughter. He was a professional baseball player.
Cool.
Yeah, he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Louisville, Kentucky. I was there a year ago, back in 2022, and I saw his plaque and everything. It was, I think he's the hero, the famous person of Roxborough. Yeah, he's got a statue and a park and everything. Most people I don't even think know who he is now. But
so you end up going to this trailer? You living there, going to school?
Yep. I lived there and for one semester because I went to school, I think, for 3 weeks. And the rest of the time
I don't even know if that counts as a semester.
Well, no, but I lived there,
Yeah.
worked, partied, and then and lied. And when the roosters came home to roost, was it chickens roost, whatever. When the truth came out, it was a bad time. Let's just put it that way. And so that's where the military comes in because my parents were really unhappy. I did move back home because I was homeless. I didn't have anywhere to go and didn't have enough money to do all, rent and all that stuff. On my own, I worked a couple jobs back in Roxborough, and at this time I'm talking to my friend, and he and I are like, man, we just need to get out of here. Like, I just don't want to be here. And so we ended up going to the recruiting station.
This is a funny story.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite stories you have.
We were going to join the Air Force. So you were right. The Air Force was the easiest branch of the military from what we had been told. So we go to the recruiting station in Durham, and we're talking to the Air Force recruiter, and then we were supposed to meet him and go on to one of the bases to kind of just feel things out. We get there that morning. It was early in the morning. I remember that. And we were supposed to meet him. We're sitting on the bench. It's just like barely dawn, and nobody's there. We don't see anybody. So we're waiting. And then all of a sudden, here comes the Marine recruiter coming around the corner.
In a van or something?
All 4 branches were at the same building. He was walking. He had parked and he was walking. We were at the front of the building.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, what are you guys doing? And we're like, hey, we're waiting for so-and-so, the Air Force recruiter. We're supposed to be going. And he just started laughing. And he said, they left a long time ago. He's like, you can't trust the Air Force. They're not reliable. So why don't you guys come inside and let's have a couple conversations, Couple Rambo videos later.
Was it actually Rambo
No, it
videos?
wasn't Rambo videos, but it was those type of inspirational, like, don't you want to be, it's not,
Marine? Yeah.
It's not all you can be because that's the Army.
Right.
You want to be a Marine, and he got us all hyped up, and next thing you know, man, we're joining the Marine Corps. And so honestly, I think we're at a point, and I know I'm the guest, but we're running a little late. I think we should come back and maybe I can pick up with this story in our next episode.
So let's get to the part where, the bread here. So you join the Marines, you're in the Marines. We'll touch more on that in our part 2 episode. You're important enough to have a part 2. I hope you feel not everyone gets a part 2.
Well, we need to fulfill some stuff too. So anyway, no.
So fast forward, how many years are you in the Marine before the thing happens?
Before my conversion to Jesus, before I trusted.
Yeah.
And it is in and of itself. I was trying
to keep it spoiler free for a second.
Sorry. But it is in and of itself a miraculous story. But it was about 1.5 years. Yeah, I had 4 years, so 1.5 years, maybe 2 years into it.
Can you start us from there?
Start you from...
Yeah, so... You've told me a couple times, but so you're in the Marines, you're driving down the street, right? You're driving back to your base and a radio show comes on.
Yeah. I think that's where we probably will pick up next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, man, just thank you guys for joining us on this episode. I know it's a little...
Left you on a cliffhanger there.
Yeah, come back. Yeah, because I love telling my story. I mean, I love Christ, and there's a story behind why I do and how that happened. And this is what this podcast is about. It's about just people telling their stories because we truly believe that Jesus is still building his church, and he does so through his Spirit. So we will pick up with that next episode, and we'll fill in the holes of how I came to Christ.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. This is going to be our 3rd episode that releases. We appreciate you listening. Hope that you are, taking something from this, hearing our stories of coming to Christ, who Christ is. But yeah, we're grateful for everyone who's decided to, use their time. I know time is precious, tuned in to listen to us. So we're grateful for that.
We'll see you next time. That was for you, Joel. All right, the red button's on. Okay, go ahead and talk.
All right. welcome to the show. I'm pastor of our city church, Reverend Minister of Youth Communion Activities, Big L. Here I have my guest, Elder Kirk.
Okay, now we're good. Let's just play this. Okay, yeah, it says we're at 10 seconds. We are recording here. Okay, I want to go back and see if we can hear it. So I'm gonna go back.